2, 1.
Welcome. I gotta do it because I'm like you.
Yeah.
I gotta be the one to.
Yeah.
Alright, bet. Alright, welcome to the YouTube channel. We are the Dallables, and we're here to give our testimony. We're here to share the good things that God has done in our life. And I don't think this is necessarily what we both wanted to do, but out of obedience, we are going to share our testimonies and how God aligned us divinely to meet. And now we are married. So my husband, he will start. Introduce yourself. I am Nisi, by the way. I'm Shanice, but everybody calls me Nisi. So if we gonna be family and we rocking on this channel, y'all can call me Nisi. And this is my husband.
Amen. My name's Blake Vincent Dallabo. And so, I agree with my wife that this is something that God wanted us to start, just to share with other people our testimonies, as well as our journey, our struggles, our ups and downs. So that being said, I guess I'll start with my testimony first, where I was born and raised in Las Vegas as an only child to a mother who was an alcoholic. My dad and my mom split when I was 2 or 3, don't even really remember it. And from there, had a really crazy upbringing with her, where around 5 or 6 years old, I was put into CPS for about 3 or 4 months, and really did a lot of damage psychologically, where I just kind of dissociated for most of my childhood, from the ages of like 6 to probably about 27, 28, honestly. And I was raised in this weird backwards area where there was no God, because I was raised in the city of sin. And so I had a lot of stuff. My mom, she was a poker dealer, and she would work graveyards, so she could party and drink and still do her job, quote unquote. And over time, like I said, I had a bunch of stuff, the latest toys, Xbox, PS3, whatever it was, but there was no gratitude. There was just a lot of dysregulation, where I never felt safe because of her being a narcissist, where if it wasn't her way, then it wasn't the way. We couldn't talk about feelings. If I was hurt emotionally, I would get yelled at, I would get beaten, and a few times in life I also got sexually abused by my mother. And so growing from that, I went to a magnet school in Las Vegas called Northwest Career Technical Academy, and graduated in 2011. And at that point, my mom, she actually was losing her job from her lack of stability, where alcohol was affecting her job. And from there, I was pretty much given an ultimatum of my father, who I did know. I met the man, but it would be for dinner a couple times a year type of thing. And the older I got, the less frequently it happened, where he was 67 when I was born, and my mom was 37. So there was a big age gap. He was born in the 1920s, had polio, and he wasn't really a role model for me. But at the end of the day, he actually left me a bond that was worth $50,000. And from there, I was given this choice of, you can move with me to Ohio, because she was foreclosing on her homes, or you can stay in Vegas and figure it out with 50 grand. So, of course, I'm a kid at that point, barely able to make decisions well for myself. So I'm like, I'm going to take the 50 grand and do whatever I want, because of how emotionally dysregulated I was. Of like, anything I want to do, now it matters because you told me I couldn't basically be a man in a lot of ways, And after a while, you know, it was just a lot of partying for about a year and a half. And, you know, it wasn't really good for me. And so I made the choice to go to the Army at about 18, 19, signed up when I was 18, shipped out when I was 19. And it helped change my life. While at the same time, you know, I came back because I was National Guard. So that 9 months of transformation kind of set this tone, I guess, of, well, now you succeeded, but you did all this stuff that nobody really knows about, and they didn't, you know, develop while you did. And so I was able to see from the people I partied with is just this difference of discipline and consistency that I wasn't like them anymore, you know? And so I kind of put myself in this role of having to achieve to like impress them, and at the same time never allowing myself to feel good enough. And you know, I think it was about 2016. I've done 3 years of college at this point, worked nights for about 4 years, was doing ROTC, and kind of had this crashing moment of like, I don't want to do any of this anymore. Like, I want to shut down. And so I did, more or less. I finished out my contract with the National Guard. That was 6 years. And from there, I started smoking weed like every single day from 2018 to about beginning of 2023. And so, you know, at first it was super fun, and all the people I partied with were all of a sudden back. And over time, though, you know, I ended up losing my job due to my own, I guess, lack of mental acuity from all that emotional buildup that had been there that like I wasn't even aware of. And over time, you know, it kind of, if you don't take care of it, it kind of comes out of you at the worst times, you know? And so for me, I ended up, like I said, losing my job, losing my apartment, and going and staying with my mom for about 4 months, where for most people that's, oh, my parents, this is gonna suck, versus for me, it was like, please God, no, like I don't want to be there, like my life is in danger if I go there. And so I pretty much just didn't sleep for like 3 months while I was there, and tried quitting weed for about a month and a half, and was so stressed that I went back to it, and eventually almost died just from the lack of sleep and how low my blood pressure was. And yeah, it was an awful time. And at that point, that's when actually God started coming into my life, you know, because in those years I was smoking and trying to play this little fantasy. You know, I was looking for God and I didn't even know it, where it was me learning about Buddhism as well as Hinduism, and meditating and reading all these books, while at the same time like still doing things my way, you know. And so at that point I finally hit like a bottom, I guess you could say, of I have no money, I hate this next job I got in IT, which I was doing IT for 9 years, and I hate where I live, I hate the people I'm around, hate, and not realizing like I'm the one who created all this, whether I liked it or not. You know, I didn't choose my parents, but I chose how I responded to them. I didn't choose, you know, all the things around me, but at the same time, my responses I chose. And so, you know, I ended up, after I quit that last IT job, ended up where I kind of was like, hey, let me kind of relax for a day or two before I start trying to look for another job. And, you know, one night my mom comes home drunk, and like, you know, it was like that moment of like, I least expect it, you know. And so I pretty much like had like a full-blown anxiety attack, and ended up just with a little bit of money I did have, where I received unemployment at that point, you know, got a hotel room for a couple of days and was just crying, honestly, and seeing like what I experienced as a child that like I didn't understand as an adult, and tried to like mask in a sense and pretend wasn't there. And so that third night, you know, the whole time I'm like, I don't want to drink, I don't want to smoke, I don't want anything. I just was that broken feeling. And so on the third night there, in this hotel room, like I'm really screaming and crying, and like ended up where God just kind of found me and kind of gave me an Abraham moment of like, well, you're not going to be here longer. Not in the sense of death, but of like rebirth, of like, you need to get out of Las Vegas. You need to figure out who you are with me. You need to let go of all these things holding you back, you know, no matter how long it takes. And so at that point, March 1st, I moved to Reno, 2021. And from there, found myself, in a different scenario where I was homeless for a couple weeks and had to figure out living, had to figure out a job, all the, stuff again. And, God moved so much in that time where, I went from barely having enough money to get gas and, seeing my account negative so many times to, eventually having a place of stability where I moved and had this landlord that was incredibly supportive. He, gave me a place that I was at for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And from there, I think it was November 2021, I started going to Convo Church. And that February, I actually got baptized. And the day I actually got baptized was the day that I met my now wife for the first time.
Yeah. And so I guess we'll hand it off to me, and I'll take you guys through my testimony and how me and him met at that point. But for me, I've been a lesbian in my past. I was a lesbian for about 15 to maybe 16 years, from the age of 15 to 30, 31. Throughout that time, people don't know, but I had been baptized in the Holy Spirit at a very young age, at the age of 11. And so I knew God. I knew I had a relationship with him, but I didn't understand things. Like, I knew he was around me. I would pray occasionally throughout that time, but I still was using my free will to live my life how I wanted to live it. And so, in spite of me knowing right from wrong, I still chose to go down a path that I thought would best suit me. And so I proceeded to pursue women, and this started at a very young age. And so from the age of 15 to 30, I dabbled with dating women, and it led to me almost being married. I was engaged to a young lady that I was with for like 7 years. I was in love with her at the time, but I felt in my spirit that I couldn't go through with actually marrying her because of that moral compass within me. It just wouldn't allow me to go as far as I would have liked. And there was times throughout that lifestyle that I would be trying to convince myself unconsciously that no, this is who I am. I had line up. I'm like, look at me, I'm a stud. Look at me, like, this is who I am. Like, and I had got tatted, and even when I was with this particular young lady, I even got her name tatted on me, thinking like, no, I love this girl. I'm trying to like convince myself that I could marry her or go to the next step. But in reality, I was holding on to it, and God shattered it. He actually shattered that whole relationship by revealing some things to me. I was already having dreams about the girl cheating on me and things like that, but I was avoiding it because this is what I wanted. And in reality, it all came into fruition, and it shook my whole world. At that time, I didn't know my identity was wrapped up in this girl, and my identity wrapped up in the image of me being this stud. I was rapping, doing music, I was selling weed. I had a good job, so it wasn't like I was just only doing these things, but my identity and my whole life was wrapped up in this lifestyle. I'm kicking it with gang members, Crips, and just riding around, thugging in a way, like. And this is who I believe I am, because I wanted to create me in my image, not the image of God. Because I trusted God with certain things, but I just didn't trust him with showing me who I was. I didn't understand that part. I figured I know me, right? So let me figure my life out. And as I was doing this, I got myself wrapped up in some bondage, and I didn't even know that I was, trapped, because in reality I was enjoying all this until like everything fell apart. And so me and this girl, we ended up falling apart. My whole world is shattered. We shared a bank account together. We had a car together. We had a house together. And, for us to have to then separate all that, it was very devastating for me, to come home and to see like everything I built falling apart. And that hurt. And so for me, I had to then reevaluate some things within myself, asking myself, like, am I really this person? Am I really, a lesbian? Am I really this stud and everything? But at the time, I was so caught up in my life that I was too afraid to even admit that I might want to change. And so I ended up getting my own apartment and decided I would keep to myself. But in reality, it was just hard to do because I had created such a fast-paced life. So people were still coming and buying weed, and I was still partying, and I was still in the studio doing music and all of these things. And so my environment was now feeding this identity. And so for me to even break free, it was so much fear of like, I can't change around these people because it just was devastating. It was too hard. I mean, I remember having times of wishing I could go to jail just so I could maybe have that opportunity to change. But deep down, I really didn't want to go to jail because I'm really not about that life. But I thought I was about that life. So I'm just struggling at this point, and I'm drowning in sorrow. My heart is broken. My spirit is broken. My confidence and my self-esteem is falling apart because I just felt so high when I was with this particular girl, and with my friends at the time, everybody I was around. I just felt so high. I had respect in the community. People who knew me at that time respected me. And so for everything to fall apart, it was just self-esteem gone, confidence gone, swag gone, everything gone. And I couldn't understand how to get it back. And so throughout this time, I remember telling myself, I'm not going to date nobody. I don't want to date anybody. But I ended up meeting a girl, very sweet girl, and she became my friend. And she ended up inviting me. Well, I'm not going to fast forward too long, but she ended up basically, being my friend, and then we started dating. So let's just say that we started dating. And I'm going to try to speed through, but after we started dating, her family wanted to invite me to live in Spain, right? Now, mind you, at this time, I'm from Reno. I'm living in Reno. And everything in Reno was causing a lot of anxiety and fear because I'm having to walk among these people and tell these people, me and her are done, and people are still thinking like, what's going on? So I'm always reminded of this scar, this wound. I'm always being reminded of this tragic relationship because we were a popular couple at the time. So I needed to leave Reno. I needed to get out of Reno. And so I took the opportunity. The girl I was with, her family was amazing. The dad was in the army. He met his wife in Spain, and he ended up moving her to America, and he promised to take her back when their kids were older. And I just so happened to come in the picture, and they wanted their daughter to go. The daughter was in love with me. I was in love with her. I got invited to go. I took it and ran with it. And so I ended up, leaving my job, getting rid of my car, closing my bank accounts, and I moved to Spain. I lived in Spain for about 1.5 years, and it changed my entire life. I'm thinking I'm gonna go out there and live this beautiful life with this girl and her family who were amazing. They were amazing people, very kind, loving people. But God had other plans. He had other plans, and I couldn't have made this up. But I think he needed to get me away from all of the things I was familiar with, all of the things that was allowing me to believe I was who I wasn't. And he put me in a place that was just so unfamiliar that I was able to then reconnect with the little girl inside of me. I was able to connect with Shanice, that little girl, before I became this stud, before I became young niece and all these things that I had created. He was reminding me of who I truly was. And so while I was out there having all these different experiences, I was starting to suffer mentally really bad. I slowed down on drinking, but anytime I would drink, I was getting mentally attacked. Like, it was just a lot of mental anguish. I could not sleep. The Bible says there's no rest for the wicked, and I wasn't having no rest. I was not sleeping. I was spiritually at war internally. It was just a lot of internal issues happening. I was experiencing anxiety like I've never had. I was just scared. And I knew what I needed to do to get out of that, but I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it. And so at this time, I remember just connecting with God more. I started to flesh out all the toxic music I was listening to. I started to engage in a lot more of YouTube. And through YouTube, I remember hearing a certain sermon from Marcus Rogers, and he was saying that it's time, God is calling some people to get naked. And this was around 2019, before the pandemic happened. And he talked about getting naked and burying yourself in front of the Lord, because the Lord knows everything, and how God bare himself on the cross for us. And it just convicted me. I was like, ooh, it's time for me to reveal some things inside of me. Maybe I'm not as gay as I thought. Maybe I don't know who I am. Maybe I need to leave, this situation. And it was very hard to even consider to leave, because it was so beautiful. I mean, Spain was so beautiful, and we had a good job. We were making good money. I literally could, do what I want when I want. I can drink when I want. I can have sex when I want. I started doing powder, and that was different, because I wasn't even into coke or anything. So when I started doing coke, I already knew, like, woo, I'm going deep into something. Even though to her and the people I was around, they was like, oh, it's just fun. But no, deep down, I knew, like, I'm trapped. I'm like trying so hard to fill a void, and it's just not working. Like, the sex ain't working, the drugs ain't working, the food ain't working, the money ain't working, this pretty environment isn't working. I am empty, and my life on the outside, people looking like, nah, this looks great. You are winning, niece, you are winning. But my soul was dying. I mean, really bad. And so I just remember trying to tell myself, well, I'll stop drinking alcohol. If I can stop drinking alcohol, then yeah, I can then, maybe see some things clear. So I stopped drinking alcohol. And then when I stopped drinking alcohol, that internal voice was saying, you're not gay, like, you need to break this off, and I was just like, I don't want to do that. So I remember writing down my confession to tell my girl at the time, like, hey, I can't be with you no more. And I remember reading it to myself just to get the courage to do it. And I remember crying to even, like, saying it out loud. I would just cry, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Because I'm supposed to be this hardcore stud, like, what? And so then I remember recording it and just listening to myself say it back and knowing it was the truth. I knew it was the truth, so it would break me down. But eventually I got the courage, because I was like, I'm so tired of not being able to rest and sleep. I remember I was up for like a couple weeks at a time. Maybe it was a month straight. I would just remember like barely sleeping, maybe a couple hours. And I just told her, because she knew we would go to work together and come home together, so she knew something was wrong. I'm very open, very honest, so she could tell something was wrong. I wasn't talking as much, and she just was like, hey, what's wrong? And this particular night, we were riding home on the train, and I just told her, hey, like, I don't think that I can continue to be with women anymore. I just don't think that I could do this. And I'm so grateful for her, because she could see that I was truly suffering. And she was the first person that didn't consider herself what she would lose, because I knew she loved me and she would lose our relationship, but she could see that I was suffering. The first thing she said was, if that's what you feel you can do that. She encouraged me, and I needed to hear that so much. And I always loved her for that, just that encouragement. And so after that, it was pretty awkward for a while because she knew the truth. And we still lived for each other for about 3 months because now that I had broken this off, I was still trying to figure out, well, I don't know what's next for me. I could still stay in Spain a little longer because I was on like a visa with her, but then like I knew God was calling me to come back to America, and I really wanted to hide and be like, well, I cannot be gay, but let me just be doing me over here. Like, nobody gotta really know, right? And God was like, psych, like, if y'all check out my page or our page, you'll see old videos of me acting out that way. The Lord wanted me to be brave. I was brave doing all that stuff when I was sinning. I can be brave for him now. And so I then called my cousin, Byron, Brody Gang, and I told him, hey, what would you say if I said I don't want to date women no more? And he was like, niece, you not dating women? Like, what? He was like, hey, do you? And that was more encouragement. I needed more encouragement. It was like, do you, niece? So I'm like, okay, like that was positive, okay. And then the next thing was I told my mom. And now this really shocked me because I remember my mom praying for me when I was like that. I remember her loving me like that. She was always loving me, but she still prayed. She still was like telling me the truth. And so I was expecting a different reaction from her, but she was like super serious. Like she was like, hey, I'm happy if that's what you want to do, niece, but understand when you do this, when you walk with the Lord, this is going to be hard. And I think that set the tone for me, because in my mind I thought she was going to be celebrating like, woo, finally, or something. And it was not that. It was like, this is going to be real. Like, I hope you're ready for this, kind of thing. But she supported me no matter what. And so after that, me and the girls, we went our separate ways. I then had to break up with her family, which was another jab to me and to them. I mean, it just hurt. All of this was very hard. It was bittersweet because it was such a beautiful thing that had happened. I could feel God's presence on me when I finally got the courage to do it and say those words to her. But it was just sad because it was so much love there between us. It was one of those situations that, like, if I could have just suffered a little longer to stay with this girl at the time, I probably would have. But my suffering, it was just too bad, and I have rejected God in my past. I couldn't keep doing this. I knew it wouldn't be good for me if I had did this. It was a time for me to finally get some courage and say, you know what? God showed me so much mercy and grace by sending me so far to figure this out, and then allowing me to say, hey, you need to make a choice now. And I made that choice, and I'm grateful I did, because I wouldn't be here today sitting with my husband, who I never would have thought I would be married. The devil kept telling me, you too manly, you not pretty enough, you're all these things. And eventually, I'm grateful I didn't believe, and I got the courage to say, this isn't true. I am who God says I am. And so from there, I flew back to America. This was around the time George Floyd all that stuff was happening. So I flew back into all that chaos, and I decided I'm going to let the Lord lead me. And I pretty much did. I lived with family and friends. I slept on couches when I got back. I had to build my credit, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into that. But yeah. And eventually, by a friend, I got invited to Convo Church. And this was around 2021. And I started attending the church. And from there, I made the decision to say, hey, I'm going to get baptized. And just so happened the day I decided, and this was the next year when I finally got the courage to do it, I then met this guy.
This guy.
Yeah, and so